Hi, I'm here with Claire Debney, the head of legal strategy for Shire. We're at the ACC Legal Operations Conference in Chicago. I had attended your panel earlier, focused on sort of communicating change when it comes and the message about legal operations. Wondering if you could talk a little bit about, particularly in the context of, I know you've been at companies where there were mergers, and how do you make that message clear to people, and particularly when you might be melding different cultures together?
So when I joined Shire had just merged with Baxalta, and it was an absolutely key thing for us to think about of how we create an identity together and how we communicate that we are now one team. That is not a straightforward exercise. It always starts with the people. I mean, I am a huge fan of operations, of systems and technology and process, but without the people piece and understanding what people need, how they feel connected to one another, it's not going to work. So we actually, led by Bill Mordan, who's the General Counsel, we looked at what we do as a team and how we talk to each other and how we communicate, and came up with the message around POD, which is the People Operations and Development Transformation Program we're running at Shire, because that can encapsulate and has the possibility of delivering everything in different modules for different people. And the way people relate to that is different as well. So the way I would think about it is slightly different to say maybe the way you would think about it, but people can find a common connectivity around it, and they also felt that they owned it. So we did it certainly not in a vacuum. It wasn't like it was just my brilliant idea. You know, we worked together as a team to think about that.
How important is the branding, and how do you tailor that brand to the particular culture of your organization?
Absolutely crucial. I think as I was saying in my panel, in my session, lawyers do have that culture of subservience. You know, we have this, we're a support function, we are the most crucial support function. We have that USP, that unique oversight of every part of the business. So finding an identity for yourself as a team brings people together. And the brand and the identity around POD that we have at Shire is very different to the one that we had at Reckitt Benckiser, where we did a similar transformation program. You need to look at your audience, you need to look at the corporate culture of the company that you're working in, the industry they're in, where they're located. You look at their own brand identity so that it doesn't feel jarring, but you can create something that works and sits naturally within that resonates with your audience.
Now, you're at a company that might be the subject of further change going
Yes.
forward. How do you ensure that the sort of the branding and everything you've accomplished, the messaging, survives no matter what might happen going forward?
I think it's about the believers, and it's about the people that it impacts. So the POD program has been running for about 15 months. We have so much more that we want to do. It is not so specific to Shire that it can't expand and come into the Shire Takeda world. I would hope that the Takeda General Counsel and their teams understand the value in what we bring. But when we have created a culture of people feeling ownership around the transformation that we're doing, it's pretty hard to remove that, because it can adapt, it can flex, it can grow to a different audience. It would probably have to change in some way to reflect the new culture. But the core tenets are not going to be any different. People are going to be at the core of that. That's just going to be a bigger group of people with challenging needs around dealing with a merger. You know, the operations piece is not going to change significantly. I think it has the ability to flex and grow in whatever new situation we find ourselves in Shire. And I believe that it can do that.
Have you seen the buy-in that you were looking for?
Yes.
How do you know when you've succeeded?
So there's a couple of anecdotes. You know, so we won an award with Legal Week, American Lawyer magazine, about 2-3 weeks ago for innovation in training. The fact we could show that we could do development internally just as well as externally, and that we could design things for our teams that would help them in their professional development and as a cohort. So the first cohort of people who went through what was called the POD Academy, which was a 10-month learning program, have given themselves the name POD Squad. They have their own WhatsApp group, they communicate with each other, and actually when the announcement around the merger came out, they were actually very supportive of each other. They were all on their texts with each other, because that's how we communicate. they have created a sense of community for even within the wider community for themselves, and that's when you know it's worked. When it's made a significant difference to people and how they feel about each other, you know that you've had an impact. I'm not going to reach everyone, but when you reach some people in that way, you know that you've had an impact, and that for me is priceless.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Excellent.
Was that clear?